Hi, John Morgan here with Bob's Market and Greenhouses, and welcome to my yard. And you might be saying, this yard looks awfully overgrown. And that's for good reason. This area of my yard, I'm planning on turning into a meadow garden. And this is kind of the first phase of that, along with planting trees. So today, I'm actually going to be planting the very first tree in my yard, and I chose a yellow delicious apple tree. So what I'm going to do is walk through the steps of planting a tree like this. It's really pretty easy. Alright, so the very first and most obvious step when it comes to planting a tree is digging a hole. And while that might seem easy, there are a few things that you need to keep in mind. First of all is the depth of the container. You want your hole to be pretty much the exact same depth that the container is. You don't want to be burying the trunk any deeper than it currently is in the pot. And then the next thing is to dig it 2 to 3 times wider than the width of the pot, and to gently slope the sides of the hole to kind of form a dish shape. And what that'll do is it'll help promote root growth as the tree matures. So, well, let's go ahead and get to the hard work of digging a hole. Alright, I have the hole completed now. It's a little over 2 times the width of the pot, and it kind of gently slopes down toward the middle. What I'm going to do now is kind of rough up the soil here in the middle and till it up, and that'll help with early root growth. And another thing that I'm going to do is get some compost from my garden to mix in with the soil here in the bottom of the hole. And that'll help just give the tree an extra little jump start. Alright, so over the winter, my compost pile has just turned into some beautiful compost. This is all kitchen scraps and plant scraps from last year. And that ought to be plenty. To plant the tree, but first we gotta get this pot off. So the easiest way to do that is just to give it a couple hits, and usually that's enough to loosen it up and get it out of its pot. Now the next thing you want to do is check the bottom of it, and this one, it seems to be pretty loose on the bottom, but if you would need to, you can take your pocket knife or a knife and cut an X in the bottom. And I would only do that as a last resort if the tree is really root bound, which this one doesn't seem to be. So I'm just going to go ahead and plant it as is. Alright, so now it's time to plant the tree, and really it's just a matter of getting it seated here in the bottom of the hole and kind of positioning it how you want it. And I'm going to kind of give one last check of the depth, which it looks pretty good. Got some weeds there I'm going to pull out. But it looks pretty good. I think I'm going to turn it like this, just because I've got this little cut here at the bottom where it was pruned, and that'll be facing more into the wind. Okay, so now it's just a matter of filling in around the tree. Now I have the hole filled in, and what I did is I let it kind of slope down toward the middle of the hole. So there's a couple different routes you can go now. One is to cover over the area with mulch, but since I have this beautiful compost, I'm going to fill in around it with compost, and that'll also kind of help, you know, this area fill in, since it is going to be part of my meadow garden. And my plan down the road is to plant wildflowers around these trees as they get bigger, and then kind of have paths winding throughout this area. So I'll go ahead and add a nice layer of compost around this. And that compost just feels amazing. So soft. Alrighty, and our last step is watering. And I've got a full can of water here, and after I empty this one out, I'm probably going to go get a second one to really give this a good watering. Planted. This is the very first tree on my property, and as I said at the start of the video, it's a yellow delicious apple tree. And something to keep in mind when you're buying fruit trees is some fruit trees are self-fertile, meaning that you only need one tree to produce fruit. In other words, it'll pollinate itself. And other trees are not self-fertile, meaning that you'll need more than one to pollinate each other. And usually there's a color-coded tag on the tree. So in the case of these, we have blue tags this year that designated self-fertile, and it has the information on there along with the zones and also what this tree is good for. It's a yellow delicious. The benefit of it is it's a yellow apple. It's really sweet and crisp, but it's also great for preserving, whether you're going to be freezing them or canning them or making pies. And that's really what I'm going to be using this fruit tree for once it gets old enough to start bearing fruit. And well, for this, another great information, visit us online at bobsmarket.com.